Hi, I'm Lucy, playing or go, aka the sound you make when you're about to throw up. As suggested by my intro card, I have a guest here today, which is Mars. They are always here. They are non-binary. I don't know their gender. So if you hear something like that, that's why. It's been a little while since I did this, so I'm like a little bit... Basically what I wanted to do was explain my very cool and quirky drawing process. For this one artwork that I did in January, which I still super duper like. I titled it Do You Understand? No, I wrote Do You Understand? But it's titled The Truth Comes Out, which is a reference to the lyrics from Touchstone Telephone, which is what mainly inspired this piece. So I just want to explain what I did and why. I don't know if anyone's interested in it. I doubt that this process will be used as a reference for like other people, but I'm going to approach this as if it is, just in case. So this goes by really fast in the video, so I want to explain super quickly that I had already I made this illustration, which was just completely a rough warm-up. You can see it was like zero stabilizer. It is for a completely different storyline. This illustration is for my comic Lucy C's Dollhouse. This is for totally something else. Now, I don't know why I chose this color palette that I did. It just kind of happened. Things just come to me. And I'm like, alright, this is what I'm going to do. This is what the premonition is. This is what the universe is giving me. We're going to do this color palette. So I already had this, which I had already done. So really what I'm doing is that I'm color picking from that drawing I had already done. And I'm adjusting it to be a little bit more bluish. Instead of like that swampy, more browns, I'm just changing it to blue because I want it to be cooler. If you're acquainted with my Twitch, follow me on Twitch. You probably know that You probably would notice that I'm not using Paint Tool Sci. I used to use Paint Tool Sci, which was on another computer, but that's no longer a thing. So I use Photoshop now, and in Photoshop I use a very similar brush. The one that's being used at this moment is not much different from the default brush, it just has more pressure sensitivity, and I accidentally did something where it gets really pointy at the end. My current GB Lazy alternative would be the Sexy Sumi brush in Photoshop, which you just get from the default, it's probably in the mega pack in the ink box. Something that made this illustration turn out really good is that I took picture references for all of the hands, well except the last one does ones because my hands are much different than his because his are long and skinny and mine are not. And also for the mouths because I wanted to get their mouths right. I have braces because I have an overbite. And because Country does not have braces, she would still have a much more severe overbite than Lucy. So I'm trying to get that right and I think it turned out very good. Something weird that I tried to do for this was that I'm actually recording this in a Discord call. I have an alternate Discord account named Counter, which I was going to use for shenanigans, but I don't really do that anymore. I just use it to send things to myself now. But I was in a call with Counter, and I shared my screen to her, and she recorded it on the Mac while I worked on this on my PC and laptop, which is now basically dead. But now I mainly work on my Mac with Photoshop and blah blah blah, so that's why I don't use Paint Tool Sci anymore. If I really wanted to make a K-Force, I could say, oh, I can go on a Windows Boot Camp, but why would I go through all that trouble? Why would I be gifted a Mac if I'm just gonna use it as a PC? So basically, contextually, what's supposed to be happening, I cannot explain in depth because I want it to be a surprise. So you're just gonna have to guess. I'm gonna keep being vague about it until it comes in like 2 or 3 years. So you're gonna have to play my game until then. But at least like, whatever, not that. They all have phones, obviously, but the goal was to give them phones from different eras. So Lucy was supposed to be like the 1950s advertisement aesthetic with like those drawings of girls are like, oh, you know, like their jaws are hung out like that. Oh, you know? So that's why she looks as she does. Counter has a choker, obviously, and a t-shirt, so she's from the modern day, and she has an iPhone, obviously. And for the last one, which is the oldest one, he's supposed to be like the 1700s-ish? He was born in 1591, so that's a little too old. I wanted to keep it classy. And also, obviously there were no phones back then. I forgot about that part. Something that unintentionally happened is that, well, you do kind of have to make a little bit of a stretch for it in order for it to be argued. But their eras kind of match how, in what order they were conceived. Tisman and Lucy were conceived around the same time, both when I was 11. Country definitely came significantly after them. It was still all in 1 year, but significant enough for me to remember it. But I definitely dove much deeper into what Desmond's deal was first, before Lucy. Something that I did at this point, usually for when I was working with a color palette, is that I would stay only within that color palette for, like, everything. Like, if you look at this, it's the same colors, the same highlights for the entire thing. What I'm trying to say is that, okay, you have a gradient map, and that is your color palette for the entire thing. Basically, what I was trying to do is that I have individual gradient maps for each part of them, so each part has their own kind of depth, each part of them has their own kind of hue variation and, like, scale. So it just makes the whole thing look prettier. That's what I'm trying to say. So, Touchstone Telephone, the Lemon Demon thingy, right? It's a good song. The chord progression is very addictive. I know that's like a kind of like a basic thing nowadays, like Lemon Demon or whatever. Cut me some slack. That just kind of happens. So, what I thought was going on in the song was that it was like about, you know, conspiracy theorists existing, where it's like aliens are real, guys, and I was like, okay, sure. And the song was just basically the aliens being like, yo, I got you. My friends, and when I confronted my friends about it, I'm like, hey, it's this, right? And they're like, no, and they thought it was like the other way around, like conspiracy theorists like sticking it to them. But I like to think that it's aliens being like, yeah, I got you, and stepping in to prove that they're real. I like that thought better. So anyway, what I wanted to take from that, it's like, oh, this thing is like, this thing we thought was like a myth, or like, just like such an alien quote-unquote idea is actually a thing. Uh-oh. And that's kind of what the moment the piece is trying to convey in this way from the comic. Of course, as I already said, we're not gonna get here for a long time. There's already some stuff trying to be... I'm setting up my magic trick. I'm gonna be setting up this magic trick for like quite a few years. Something else kind of weird that happens, which I don't really do anymore, unfortunately, which is, I'm not as, like, consistent with pieces as I am. Like, for this one, I knocked it out in 3 days every time, like, after I had dinner, you know, homework, blah, 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 the whole shabam. I went straight to this, and I worked on it for, like, an hour, and then I went to sleep. And I did that for, like, 3 days. So, total time on this, I believe, was a little over 3 hours, which is a decent amount of time for me. I consider myself, in comparison to other artists, I'm reasonably fast. But it's just something, that's not something that I've done for a while. I was on a jam for another piece, but... hold on, wait for it. The phone's done, I didn't record it. Oh! to talk about this thing that happened to me just today, because that's my style. So, I'm guessing it's because of the normalization and overuse of them over the wonderful internet, as I'm far too acquainted about it. It's the setting for my comic, and also it's vaguely relevant because depression jokes are really hard to make. I can't, like, do anything without it feeling like it's already been done before. Depression, they've just been driven into the ground. Where it's like anything just feels like it's overused. And of course the clear antidote to that would be don't make depression jokes, but it's just like, I have a lot of opportunities. So I'm like, I should try to do one. You know, I like challenges. That's my writing style. I like challenges. So although usually I go to deeper levels than just a joke about depression, of course it intrigues me, like, oh, I can't do this. Of course it's going to be something that's going to intrigue me that I want to get right. And I'm probably gonna die trying. 1000% irrelevant and stupid, but I started my psychology class and there's this kid in my class named Desmond, and I'm like, oh no, I can't. I can only talk about stuff. I don't want a situation to arise where I'm like, well, actually, in case somehow I have to, because that's, what was it? His story is like the main psychology thing. Of course it's gonna get brought up in psychology somehow, knowing my luck. Ugh. I made the decision that Counter cries ink and actually bleeds it because she's monotone, monochrome. I originally made that decision because of the stereotype around it and where I came from, because back in my day, we were in the animation community in 2017. My grandma accent isn't going too good because it's 9 p.m. But that's why I did it, because it's an edgy stereotype. And Counter is an edgy stereotype that failed at her job, which would be killing the original, and instead they're homies. So, but there's also, because they're writers, so I realize there's something to be said about Counter literally crying and bleeding what you use to write. I mention this now because I do have a bit of a paranoia that's like, oh, what if this and this doesn't catch on and da 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 da. So far, it seems to be going okay. But I'm just gonna mention this little tidbit for fun. But what makes Counter different from that edgy stereotype is that for that edgy stereotype, it's usually just for a shock factor. But don't get me wrong, Counter actually, she cries because she's upset. So don't take that the wrong way. She is upset. let's talk about how much Desmond looks like shit. So, what the original idea was, of course, it started out as like a stereotype, but now it's just like a planned, unfortunate combination of traits, which is deep set eyes, stress, and in this picture, sleep deprivation. He is tired. He has been kept up. I can think that this is the thing that happens. He gets progressively more tired as the series goes on. I don't know if I'll remember to portray it. I really hope I do, and I hope someone catches on to it. He slowly loses sleep as the series goes on. Why? Shh. I think this is just because of his face structure, because it's supposed to be like a little bit more rigid, because you know, it's a guy, it's a man, but just like, it was also like how the shiniest by accident, but he looks so like crisp and divine. I kind of love it. That's just something weird that happened. Like, he looks like he's made out of marble. You get what I mean? I'm not sure how that happened. 1000% irrelevant. Let's talk about his hair. Because I've been trying to work on his hair changes from his story to Lucy's Dollhouse. As in what I've been trying to do. Mars! I'm trying to speak. Mars has been biting me. He's been trying to eat me alive, and I'm like, stop it, girl! Girl, what are you doing?
I was going to talk about a difference in hair texture. Because yes, this is something I'm paying attention to. Just because it would be too long to explain. He gets humbled, so he decides to clean his appearance up. Basically what I've been trying to make the difference of is that, for Lucy Sue's Dollhouse pictures of like, his hair is frizzy, it's like he doesn't comb it, he doesn't take care of it, he takes care of himself. And then he finally like tries to like clean up his appearance and like take care of himself in the Lucy's Dollhouse era, which is after all of the bullshit happened. To continue with this theme, another idea that I had was that he gets a tattoo. And this was how I got distracted looking for symbols I could steal. So I first tried to go down the line of apologizing ideas. And I got Apology by Plato. By Plato. I got Apology by Plato, which is basically like a court record of Socrates testifying against the Greek government because Socrates was corrupting the youth. Now I know what that document is, because I got distracted looking for tattoo ideas. It's an entire sleeve, so it's very demanding. My previous pseudo pop filter, which was a sock, has been shitted on by my bird. So I took it off, and now you can hear both the bird and I very, very clearly. I need another sock. So I'm just about finishing this piece because, hooray, because, that's not really a because, that's just I'm finishing this piece. I totally forgot that at one point I wanted to color the line art to like blend it together more. But then I decided, A, too lazy, B, it looks good as it is. And then I also was struggling to figure out what to write. I like to incorporate words into my pieces, both just for extra clarity on what my intent is, and also because clunky dialogue can help make you uncomfortable, and it really adds to the vibe of the piece. And then I just did it off camera. I turned it off. I'm like, I don't know what to write it off. So that was my entire thing. That was my spiel. Thank you so much for listening. I'm sorry this is totally uninteresting. This is just something I want to do for fun. I talked about like 5 different things, some of which are completely unrelated, so pardon me for that. But if you like that kind of content, you should follow me on Twitch. I go live when I go live. I'm thinking maybe the schedule will be live on Wednesdays unless I have work. Yeah, I got a job, so that's gonna trifle with my plans, but it's okay. I just recently made an update to Lucy's Used Dollhouse. The most recent episode is episode 5, where Sugar finds love and also gets shot down. And also, the most recent update is Something Medium Breaking the Ice, which is the cast responding to questions asked by nobody actually, except one person at the end, my lovely friend, but they just answer icebreaker questions and then that's about it. So that's a fun time, so look at that if that interests you. Everything will be in my link tree down below. I'm just gonna link my link tree because I'm lazy. Thank you so much again. Stalk me at your own leisure. Bye bye.